Hello, Duckies and Dice Fiends. Welcome on in. It is Tuesday. That means it is time for the Table Talk Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Kate Purcell. I got a lot of stuff that I'm doing that we're going to go over in a second. But David, who the heck is you? And what the heck is we doing here?
Hi, I am David, and today, welcome to the Table Dungeon Talk Mr. Show Ty suggested Tuesday talk show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
Yes, and as David said, this week we are going to tackle a topic suggested by Dungeon Mr. Ty, who's hanging out in chat, who has been on the show, friend of the channel. Thank you so much, Ty. So yes, Friday, y'all are going to want to come on by. Last Friday, David played The Expanse by Telltale Games on stream, and Telltale came and hung out. And this week, David's going to do it again, but we're going to have a Telltale game to give away.
Yes.
So
make sure you come by so that we can give you a free game, because we have a free game to give away. And all the Telltale games are awesome, so make sure you stop in to get your free game.
And on Thursday, that's what day it is, I'm playing Pokemon. We're going through the DLC. I haven't touched the DLC since I was on stream, so we're going to go on that little adventure together. Wednesdays, I can't announce it yet, but coming up on Wednesdays, there is going to be a new something that I'm going to get to be doing, and I'm very excited to share all that with you. Wednesdays are, every third Wednesday is going to be interesting because I'm going to have back-to-back games on Wednesdays, and that's going to be a time. However, that is about all I can talk about right now, I do believe.
Thank you, JD Lady, for plugging the VOD.
Oh, thank you, JD.
If you're not following our YouTube channel, then you are wrong. Go fix it.
And it's more confusing because we have two YouTube channels now, one for TTRPGs and one for games. So we understand if you didn't see that, but we thank you for supporting. Subscribing on Twitch is not free. Subscribing on YouTube is free, and it really, really does help us. As do any comments, hearts, thumbs up, all of that actually really helps. We are all slaves to the algorithm. But as we said before, we want to talk today. This was sent in by Dungeon Mr. Ty. And as my combat designer, David, because we share the work here. David has taken over production of this show.
I mean, we're now sharing production of the show because Kay also does a lot of things before. So there's the before, like the pre-show. Like everybody who's run a stream TTRPG knows about like the green room. You show up before, get your levels right. So I'm doing the green room stuff now, but then all the pre-production stuff, Kay is still sorting that stuff out.
And I do most of the on-screen GMing. Yes, like and subscribe. Werewolf. Thank you, Rex, for always giving my dear friend so much pain. It brings me so much joy.
That hurts. That hurts.
So, stakes in TTRPGs. And here's the thing. We have to talk about this on a couple levels because I know exactly what Ty was discussing, meant. And it was specifically combat. Kai came to us with, like, hey, one of my friends is super nervous about combat balance, is super nervous about, hurting the party, and never ever wants a player to, or a character, not a player, please don't kill your players, is very worried about ever possibly letting a character die. And look, as a person who's had a character die multiple times in the same game, as a person who has said to a GM, I want to make this worse, and I am beyond willing to die for it. I am willing for my character to go out right here, right now, this episode. Done. Character death is really fun. So we do need to talk about that, but there are other ways to raise stakes and tension in TTRPGs. So David, combat balance, especially in 5e sucks.
Yes, and I would advise people. So a couple of things. One, when it comes to combat balance, if you are a GM, don't worry too much about it, because the rule of thumb that Wizards of the Coast gives you is to for every combat rating of a monster, one character of that equal level can take it. So if you have a level 4 player, like a level 4 character, and you throw a level 4 Spida at it, in theory, that player is supposed to defeat that easily. It gets complicated when you start to really dig into action economy. And the D&D movie is a really good example of that.
The recent one, Honor Among Thieves.
Honor Among Thieves, yes. Ooh, yeah.
Let's clarify that.
Because in the big climactic battle, no spoilers, there was an initiative order, people were attacking in turn, and those attacks were taking about 6 seconds apiece. And part of why they won that fight is because it was a bunch of them against one person that had one attack per round. And also, narrative reasons and yeah, but it's a good enough analogy. You want to that's why there are layer actions, that's why there are legendary actions, is to help make up for the lack of action economy that one creature has. And it's also why you throw a lot of little guys against your party.
But also beyond that, below level 3 combat, really, not to use the phrase, is really a roll of the dice. You can have a mimic TPK.
Yep.
If the mimic gets lucky and that low level party just can't score a hit. It has happened before.
Right. And I mean, having recently run a couple of combats that are under level 3, I hate it. I'm not sure I will ever run a level 1 campaign ever again. Because you have a wizard with 4 hit points. A 1/4 combat rating creature can outright kill a wizard in 1 round. You get dagger is 1d4. So you could down someone even if it's a level 1 peasant with a dagger or a club or a fist, because I think unarmed combat is 1d4 plus strength bonuses.
I think it's 1 plus your strength, but unarmed combat's a whole thing.
But either way, with just pocket sand and a dream, you could take out a wizard at level 1.
Yeah.
Oh, just chats chatting today. But in regards to all this, don't focus too much on combat balance. He says this while he is designing combat for a thing that we're running in the future, or redesigning a combat encounter. Focus on making it interesting, because there was this I want to say it was a tweet where a DM admitted to a player, yeah, I don't really keep track of hit points, but when it's appropriate, then and the player was like, gross. 1, don't tell him that. 2, no one knows the numbers that are in front of you. So if this creature has 110 hit points and 4 people in your party hit for 30 hit points apiece in the first round, we'll slap another 100 hit points on them. And then at the end of the combat go, oh man, that thing had 240 hit points. You guys did great.
I very, very much respect the GMs who are like, I do not flub rolls. I do not flub hit point pools. They have their combats like dialed in to a science, and when they do it and it's good, it is so good. However, I've also been in a ton of combats where it's like, oh, it's almost dead, and then 4 people do damage, but low damage, and this thing is still alive, and it's alive with 1 hit point, and it's just, and you're just like, or even worse, you've like killed kind of the big bad of the mob, and there's just a little 1 or 2 add-ons that are just there, and they just keep like pinching away at you, and you're just like, die. Just stop existing. Like, the combat is no longer fun. And that's a big part of it, is the combat. 5e mechanics. Combat is not out of the box incredibly fun unless you're a really big number cruncher. Spoiler alert, I'm not. Like crunching numbers, I'm not good at it at all. The goal is to keep combat exciting and interesting and fun.
If you sit at a table with me, and over the course of this episode, we'll talk about a lot of the things that happen when you sit at a table with me. But if you sit at a table with me, I don't fudge rolls like, what do they call the non-combat rolls? There's a word for it, I'm just not remembering it.
Skill checks?
Yeah. Skill checks on NPCs that I roll, whether you see them or not, I don't fudge them. Because the dice tell a story. So when I tell you, hey, this NPC rolled a 4, then that's what it says on the die on my desk. With combat encounters, as a general rule, I don't make them easy. Like, if you are in a combat encounter, I try to balance them so that they're fair, but that means that if you roll really well, then you steamroll. And that means that I'm gonna slap some hit points on things. And again, at my tables, I don't do XP for level up, because then you get people crunching numbers for how many things they killed, and it also doesn't take into account all of the benefits you get for not getting into a combat. Like, you walk up to 5 guys and they're ready to scrap, and you talk them down, you're going to get XP for that. Whereas, like, especially like in a lot of older video games, you would talk them down and then you wouldn't get anything, and it's like, well, why did I bother talking? Because I need the XP to level up. Hi, Moxie.
Hey, welcome.
But I still kind of keep a running tally on, like, how difficult is this encounter, whether it's breaking into something, whether or breaking into somewhere, picking a lock, disabling a trap. Like, a combat encounter can be resolved in multiple ways, and I'm going to give you a percentage of your XP bar based on the difficulty of that. So if I ratchet up the difficulty, then the benefit that you get from it in my head as I'm keeping track of things also increases, because I'm like, yo, they're not fighting like a level 4, they're fighting like a level 6, so they need to get where they're going faster. But that's... Yep.
As David knows, I'm such a narrative person. Like, combat is there for a reason. I'm there to tell a story. So if you do a thing that is interesting, I want to reward you. Whether that is just being like, you know what? There's a billion ways I could approach this, but I hate this person. This person has been taunting me, so I'm gonna go punch him in the face. Consequences be damned. I respect that, and I want to reward you for writing that character arc to that point. If you are like, the obvious thing is to fight, and I want to find a creative way to get out of this. I want to find a way to broker peace. I want to drag up some detail that may or may not be connected and see and throw that at this character and see if they react. I'm gonna reward you for that. And if you normally would fight and you don't, or you normally wouldn't fight and you say, you know what, no, I'm fighting, and it's in line with your character and their arc and the story that we're telling, oh, I am adjusting the amount of XP you are getting in my head. Because to me, especially in streamed games, home games, I feel like it's also a thing, but sometimes in a home game, you're just like, I've definitely been in home game groups where it's all like, GM, every single person at this table's had a really bad week. Can we punch something? Just, I don't care what it is, just let me fight something. I need to fight something. On stream, you're telling a story. So whenever a player leans into that character growth, leans into that story, reward them. All of the rewards.
A good example of balancing difficulty with storytelling and difficulty with sensibility is a combat encounter I ran in a game. I had a bunch of low-level characters who were underground in a cave system, and they came across Grimlocks. And they didn't do the math on like what Grimlocks represent in the overall, but but they got attacked by like 7 of them, and more of them were coming. And it's like, there are 3 of us. What are we gonna? And one of the players absolutely destroys 2 of them in 2 rounds. Like one, he'd taken a little bit of damage, and then like bap, 80% of his HP pool gone, dead. And then the next one split in half. Like just in one roll did the entire HP pool, and I was like, well, how do you want to do this? And a couple more had died. Now, these are Grimlocks, humanoid creatures. They're smart. They used to be people. They have a natural built-in sense of fight or flight. And I don't know about you, but every time I've been in the vicinity of someone getting split in half, I relocate. I catch a bus.
How many nickels do you have for that one?
A surprising amount. No, thankfully 0. And so I was like, the rest of them turn and leave. And there was this sentiment of like awe that was, fighting we couldn't do. And also they were a little bit beat up. And so afterwards they were like, you didn't have to yeah, we were a little beat up. You didn't have to like pull them away and make the counter easier. I'm like, I didn't make the counter easier.
You spanked them.
You killed the shit out of them, and then they ran away. Now, here's the thing. You didn't stick around. You didn't know if they went and got back up. You didn't know if they just ran for the hills. And what they didn't know is, so, they walk into a cave, and there are multiple cave entrances. And I sort of described this one tunnel very specifically, and I was like, and there are a fair number of chattering noises down there. I built this campaign where there's a big bad at level 8, a big bad at level 14, and a big bad at level 20. The level 8 big bad was down that tunnel. If they had just started marching down there and walked and killed their way through another dozen of those things, they would have run into something that would have eaten their players. Not killed, eaten their players. And again, they didn't know what was happening next. And so I could say to them honestly, one, these creatures reacted in a sensible way. Mm-hmm. 2, who says I was making the combat easier? When really I might have, probably have, and if they had fucked around, you will find out.
Yeah, that is
making it hard.
That is one of the, I credit David with a number of awesome things, but one of the things that David really taught me about D&D was not every combat has to be to the death. Not every combat should be to the death. In fact, surprisingly few combats should be to the death. Which is one of the reasons I really, really need to play more Pathfinder 2e, because their action economy makes it much easier for monsters and big bads and player characters to run away if they want to. Yes, I would like to. Dungeon Mr. Ty also says rewarding players for taking risks. A lot of players work hard to protect their characters, otherwise take safe encounter actions over and over and over again, jumping off the ledge and onto the bad guy 12 feet below. Yeah, that's, you took a risk, you did a fun thing. And so I'm going to slightly shift this. We're not leaving combat, but one of the things I'm wanted to talk about is there are really good ways to build stakes outside of combat. And as many of you know, it is on break right now, but I'm part of the Emergency Power Podcast. It is is that behaving? No. Okay, cool. It is a Starfinder first edition podcast in which our incredible GM Adam runs us through their homebrew world, and I get to play just the worst character in the world. I love them. And this mercenary scam artist doesn't care about anyone except themselves character met an NPC whose history very much reflected, thank you, David, very much reflected my character's backstory. And that caused my character to be like, I want to protect this character. I care about this person, and I want to make sure that they are in a better position than they currently are. This result, like, multiple fallout. It was not planned. I didn't know this character existed when I wrote my character's backstory. This didn't happen, but there was a chance, like there was an opportunity for a combat to have gone very wrong and for us to have lost this NPC. And my character is a melee class. They are, hey, it is this one. They are a Solarian, which is 5e. It's kind of like a paladin, only it's more Jedi. And they have a moat that connects them to the universe. They have a little halo that is the universe manifesting its will through them. And my character was 100% ready to be like, this kid has died. There is no healing in me. There is nothing I can do. I am melee. But I will try and force this will of the universe into this kid. I will give up my connection to the universe to keep this kid alive.
Wow.
So there are many different ways to build stakes, from connections with other characters and NPCs to, connections within the party. We can't talk too much about it, but we just ran a session where, fully consented within everyone within the thing, PvP broke out. And David and I as GMs didn't even have to police it. We just sat back, like the players were like, no, we got this. You don't need to, we can navigate this ourselves. We're good. Which is such a rare treat as a GM. Holy cats, to just watch that happen. To stakes within the world, if you have a political game and the bad guys that your characters don't trust are starting to infiltrate, their whatever town they call home. There are all sorts of ways to be like, if you all don't take action, if you all don't do something akin to the right thing, then the world that you inhabit is going to start becoming a bad and hostile place to you. And that kind of stake can be even more powerful than, well, am I going to risk my character's life?
So, stakes are all about consequence. And like we touched on it earlier, but we said death isn't the only consequence, but death is a consequence. And as anyone who has played at my tables for long-term, medium to long-term games, if we're doing a charity, like a slapstick charity one-shot, I'm not going to be gunning to kill your characters. But otherwise, if you sit at my table, one of the first things I say is your characters are in real danger. And actually, one of Kay and I's design philosophies is not every encounter that you run into should be overcome with force. And so both I and Kay and I will throw things at you that you cannot fight. And we'll make it kind of like obvious. Like, there are many apocryphal stories about party goes to meet the king of whatever country, and it's a bunch of just like low-level guards and the king, and so somebody goes, why should we bow to him? And then they punch him in the face and coup the whole country. And it's very much like part of it is to prevent that, but part of it is to give you scale. Like at level 8, you are not gods of the world that you inhabit. Like you're not even close. You'll run into demigods, you'll run into gods, you'll run into grizzled war veterans that know every trick that you would try to pull because they've seen it before. The person who's the head of this mercenary guild didn't get there by sweet talking his way. Maybe he's got 20 years of combat experience. And maybe he's afraid of his wife for a reason because she's got 20 years of combat experience and has been better at him and saved his bacon on many occasions. But it's all about consequence, whether it is losing your character, and like we've talked a bit in previous episodes about, okay, make sure you talk to your players about what's important to them, because like JD Lady said earlier, like I will die before my animal companion dies. And if somebody put their childhood cat Muffins in the game, maybe not a good idea to have like a piece of the castle wall break off, fall, and kill Muffins. Maybe be a little careful with Muffins.
We had in one of the games that we're running that we can't talk about yet, one of the players was like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this class and I might want to give them, I'm thinking of this animal companion. And then like, as soon as they said that, went, this is the kind of game where I'm like, yeah, anything in this can die. It's like, okay, never mind. No animal companion this game. No, not risking it, right? Like, because I, as a GM, if I know that thing is really important to you, I'm going to do my best not to kill it, but the dice are going to tell a story.
So the idea of raising stakes is to present your players with potential consequences that they don't want to see come to pass. If your players are a little bit on like the anarchist side, like they want to overthrow a government, and then you give them a job of preventing the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, then maybe they're not the people to have this job, because they'll be like, well, what if we help? Mm-hmm. We actually had a touch of that in a thing that we were running where it's like, we could, and it's like, that's not we didn't think that was the point here, but you could.
Yeah, you absolutely could. You know who you're aligning yourself with if you do that. Right. But yeah, if that's the way this party's going to go, heck yeah. Dungeon Mr. Ty says stakes can be customized for players too. I throw a shiny that I know a certain player is going to pick up. So it had intrigue and terror they never expected in a million years. Yeah, like when I played the nervous but sticky-fingered changeling rogue in a horror game, oh yeah, GM's like, here's all this stuff you could steal. And I'm like, my character's an idiot. I'm stealing all of it. And it was terrible. And I knew it was going to be terrible because that's why you play a sticky-fingered cowardly rogue in a horror game. So you could just keep all the badness on. That also ties in, it also ties in with a thing that Brennan Lee Mulligan talks about when he builds worlds, when he's coming up with, and again, this is especially good for streamed campaigns, short campaigns, things that you got to power your way through. When he comes up with the idea for, okay, the next Dimension 20 show is going to be blah, he's got the basic like idea, premise, setting, a general guideline in his mind, and then sends that premise to everyone, and everyone starts sending back their characters. He then looks at what characters people are playing and goes, this means I need to build out X and Y and I don't have to mess with Z. So his example was, I get a whole list of characters and there are no paladins and no clerics. I'm not building out the gods except for the gods that people have specifically said their characters mention. I don't have to have a whole religious society. That saves me time. Also, rather than coming in with a whole list of 20 NPCs, I look at the backstories and say, oh, your uncle killed your whole family and then vanished. So you walk into a tavern and sitting there can either be my super cool, shady NPC, you know, who's obviously a touch point, interesting thing, and everyone's going to ignore them and go talk to the barkeeper. Or I can have your uncle sitting there. Who are you going to go talk to? I'm going to use what you gave me. So stakes as well at and that's part of how you get players to invest is you put in stakes that they can't afford. The folks over at No Quest for the Wicked, they took this off of a thing out of Reddit, which I can go look up, but they talk about everyone has to have knives. And it's not the knives that you are carrying, it's the knives in your back that the GM can twist at any given time. So everyone has to come in and the whole party doesn't have to know it, but the GM and the player have to know it. These are knives, and I need to know what they are. So when you are getting off track, when things are stalling, when I need to get you to that spot, I can twist that knife.
Speaking of knives, and we'll circle back to comments in a second, but this is a good segue to letting your characters, letting your players develop things in world through their interactions with people that become stakes for them. So in the home game I run for Kay, speaking of knives, our dwarf fighter, our dwarf gladiator, was like, hey, these orphans, they're cool. I hear that people are trying to hurt these kids. Here, orphan, take this knife. And so they come back into town 3 days later, and a bunch of places that sell like daggers and kitchenware have been burgled and are missing knives. And then a week later, people start turning up dead around town.
And they're all the people who were bad to the orphans.
Right. And so the player is like, oh man, I have this cool intelligence network. I could just and utilize it. We'll go up and like give a kid a piece of chocolate and be like, so what's been happening here? Who's been coming and going? And we'll get information. But also, like we'll be out and about and like a town guard will go chasing an urchin that stole an apple and then go around a corner and there are 4 kids with knives. And I'm like, ooh-wee. Now, he and other members of the party are invested in the orphans. So if I want to really like dig into the players, all I have to say is, oh, one of our players voiced, like just completely ad-libbed, voiced one of the characters and made the sweetest, most innocent fucking orphan you've ever. Yeah. It helps that she's a professional voice actor.
Thank you for the chocolate. It's
right.
So good.
And that whole time I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be really terrible when this kid gets flayed. Like, now I'm not saying go out there and kill kids. Don't kill kids, but a light kidnapping will motivate your players.
A little bit of a threat. Yeah, right. A little bit of a threat. Like, find that favorite NPC. Because again, we all know how this goes. You've built this really cool NPC. They've got tons of cool information. They are fascinating. You can't wait. This is the character that you would play in a game if you weren't a forever GM, right? You are ready for this character to come into action. And everyone's like, cool, what's that kobold up to?
Right. But to circle back to comments, Rex said, had an imprisoned NPC give a speech, then its familiar punched a hole in the 1-inch thick stone wall of a tower big enough for the NPC to walk out of 10 stories up. They gave chase. That's when you go and look up fall damage rules. And Silverline Prime says, "Oh boy, I made a thief want to change his sticky fingers because he stole a statue that cursed haunted them. Blood appeared in his boots, had the feelings of things crawling on him, etc." That's funny because, like, in the game that I am, or one of the, in the home game I'm running right now, we have this NPC who has a history as a mercenary, and the party had to go to a town that that when she was a mercenary, before she was the head of the Adventurers Guild, she went and collected kids from that town. It was like, we're gonna go off to war, and then when they're done with war, I'm gonna send them back, and none of them came back. And so Grandma had a bone to pick with her, and they went looking for somebody who was from that town. And that town obviously didn't cater to outsiders. And so the head of the Adventurers Guild was like, listen, just tell them I sent you, they'll talk to you. And Grandma went, oh, well, here, take this with you. Gave them a necklace. And it was like this crude, had stones woven into it, was made of like linen and rope. She puts it on, and the curse starts. And she starts to wither. And the players get to watch this woman's prosthetic arm fall off because she shriveled too much to fill out the prosthetic arm. A very fancy prosthetic arm, by the way. And it's like, and it be so. This isn't specifically to raise the stakes, but it is something that is important to fleshing out your world. Every character, every NPC that your players meet, whether it is a bandit who ambushed them on the road, whether it is a homeless guy out in front of a temple, whether it is someone laying, like an aristocrat lying in bed dying of consumption in the most romantic way possible, that person, listen, consumption was a real sexy way to go, like in like the late 1800s. Like you coughed gently into a handkerchief, there was a little bit of blood there, and then you were like, ugh. And then you were, what are the fainting couches called?
A fainting couch.
Yeah, they had fainting, and then you'd be like, ugh. And then you would, very slowly expire in like your white linen dress, et cetera, et cetera. But each person they meet has a past and a future, and you don't necessarily have to like architect out a past and a future for everyone, but it is a great way to add depth to your world. It is a great way to give your players hooks and directions they can go, because when they kill that bandit leader and they're running his pockets going, I know he's got some change on him, and they find an old rusty dagger, and they find a letter from a 6-year-old that says, Mom says you can't come back until you pay off the family farm. And then you see the bag that is 90% full of the money that they needed to pay back the family farm. Then you have the question of, well, I just killed it, like he was trying to kill me, but I killed him right back. But do I take that money, throw in a little bit more, and pay off or do I go, sweet, new suit of armor for me? Raising stakes are just oh my god.
And again, often letting your players guide what these NPCs do. So there was that in the early days of campaign 2 of Critical Role, when they were all traveling between locations, and they kept, like, Matt was rolling the random encounter tables, they kept meeting bandits. They all decided, they're like, is this the same group of bandits? And you could just see Mercer being like, yeah, it's the same group of bandits. And so they're like, damn it, Jerry. And he's like, no, you again. And so, like, they started the fight, and then the same voice comes out and is like, oh, shit. And they try to run away, and they're like, no, you're going to go and get a job, Jerry. That, again, it raises stakes. Now, is it necessarily is my character going to die? No, but it connects your players to these worlds because we've all had that murder hobo party. And why are people murder hobos? Well, there's lots of reasons. And let's be fair, sometimes you just want a meat grinder murder hobo game, right? You just want to go kill something. That's fine in the right place. But for stream games, for games where you're trying to tell stories, you usually want a little bit of emotional investment. And how you start that is you get the players to care about the world. And yeah, sometimes what you think is going to work doesn't. And sometimes the NPC that you planted to be a love interest for the character, 0 interest. But I didn't know that character was bi, but they're super into that party member that I totally didn't expect. Awesome.
Oh,
They're
man,
invested.
Yeah. Who you never know when like a small town blacksmith will become the crux of both a failed love affair and a clueless, indifferent love affair.
Betrayed by the dice that I made as a gift.
Right.
Would have it no other way. But yes, absolutely, Silver Lion. The investment is the important part. And so here's the other thing I'm going to point out, and this is taking a little bit back into the combat. Because let's be honest, characters can die and or sacrifice themselves outside of combat. When a part of the reason players will willingly give up a character, one of them is they're just bored. That sometimes people are done with the character permanently or just for a little bit. Like, hey, I've got a bop character. I want to do a blast character. Can I just put the bop character on the shelf and do a power fantasy blast before I go back to just hitting the attack button in combat? That's fair. Sometimes a character hits a little too close or a little too far from what you're going through in life. And it's like, I can't handle another angsty character with the unexpected angst that just hit me. Angsty character has to go on the shelf. Can I have a himbo? Just as a treat, can we just have a little bit of himbo?
Yeah, can I go out and steal teeth as a treat?
Just as a treat, just for fun. This ties back into what we were talking about at the top of the discussion, which is you have to make things matter. You have to reward players for doing big things. That is one of the best ways to convince, not even to convince, but to encourage or allow players to sacrifice their character, to make those bold decisions, is if they feel like I am taking a risk, I might lose this character. But I have taken risks. I have done big, bold, and unexpected things in the past. And my GM has honored it. My GM didn't go like, ha, you're dead, roll up a new character, right? They honored it. They went, this was a sacrifice. When you can give a character a noble sacrifice exit, when you should be dead, here is a thin chance way that you can come back if your party helps you. When you give them those options, when you show them that this character is not disposable to me, this character is important, this character matters, and I am going to give you that emotional height, that emotional resonance. So if you do this, if you take this great big gamble and you succeed, you are going to do something amazing. It is going to be awesome. If you take this great big gamble and you fail, it is going to be tragic, but it is going to be the kind of tragic that you can feel good about doing. That is why players will be like, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to let my character die in this moment. I'm going to risk letting my character die. I'm going to save the pet because Fluffy Bunnykins needs to live forever. And my new character can have a special connection to Fluffy Bunnykins while going out in this epic, amazing way that is going to impact my party members.
Quick tangent, because I am... So, the quick tangent is Find people who do stuff that can help what you're doing and pay them real money to do it. I am just as guilty of this as everyone else. And be like, no, I'll do this for the buddy price. Don't worry about it. Like, slide me $10 at a chicken sandwich. It's all yours for 20 hours of work. It's fine. Pay the people because they need the money. Because I don't care who you are. There are 770 billionaires in the United States and about 1,000 in the world. If your name isn't on that list and your name isn't on the list of like people who have more than like $10 million, which is a larger but not a significant percentage of people, then you need the money. Right. If you want to support your friends, you pay full price. Don't ask for a discount. Because I was just a friend of mine is a composer, and I'm doing a thing.
Now I know what this tangent is about.
Yes. And he just hit me with a price where I was just like, yikes. But I'm gonna pay it. Not soon, but I'm gonna pay it. Anyway, but another way to raise stakes is when I originally conceived this, I was like, it's all about like fear of loss, like you will lose this thing. And one of the examples I had was not just giving an NPC, because we've covered like, you will run into an NPC that you'll care about, but don't just threaten their life, threaten their disappointment. Like we have a home game where we have a big himbo who's a goody two shoes, who's also susceptible to outside influence, but has a talking warhammer. And part of my interest is getting them to color outside the lines enough so that the warhammer whispers in their ear and go, what are you doing? And I just want to see the disappointment, because that's a real consequence. But the other, so like I said, I originally conceived it as loss, but like consequence focus is better, because what motivates players is not just the fear of losing something or the fear of a consequence happening, but that consequence happening and then them reacting to it.
Yes.
Like you burn down, so like you have a paladin, you have a cleric, and you have a thief who is very good at what they're doing. They are very evil. They go steal things. They stab people. They do the whole thing. Burn down the Thieves Guild. Burn down everywhere that they called home. Their favorite bar, their favorite bordello, their favorite place to go throw dice. Burn it all to the ground. And then watch them tool up and go after whoever did the burning.
And this is, I was delighted, Dungeon Mr. Ty, when you suggested this topic, because it is one of my favorite topics. Most of you here, I believe, have seen Godplane. Godplane is an original horror campaign that David and I wrote. We've run it twice so far. I am so proud of both, but the second campaign is just, I am so proud of it. We got to play with Urban Bohemian, Candace the Magnificent, Carrie Smith, and Piper. And it wasn't at the end of it. We were nearing the end. And Brian, Urban Bohemian, was talking about the game during one of his morning streams. And they said, it's not like horror it's not like Saw. It's not like Scream. It's not like, it's consequence horror.
Would you like to play a game? I would love
and
to
that
run a game
is
like that.
That is one of the requirements that we had for creating a character in the Godplane. Is we said to people, give us a character who has cast a long shadow, right? I'm not saying they have to be evil. You don't have to be playing an evil character. But, hey, Candace, welcome on in. Give us a character who has done things. Give us a character who is not a level 1 fresh-faced adventurer, or if they are a level 1 fresh-faced adventurer, they have a family that is known and has done things. Because let's remember, every story is history is written by the victors, right? And everyone, generally speaking, with very few exceptions, is the good guy in their story. And the God Plane came out of a story I was trying to write. I tried so many different formats, y'all. David saw several of them. Like, it's a story that I was trying to tell, and I couldn't tell in a way that was satisfying. And the first attempt at God Plane was a comic. And one of the characters was pulled into the God Plane, trying to figure out what the heck's up. And they are just the most noble of knights. They were, they led armies to help their god expand and teach people the right things. And they discovered in the God Plane that basically they were leading the crusade. What they were doing was actually an affront to their god. This is the kind of story that we gave to players, going, give us these things. So when we talk about the knives, not the knives in your hands, the knives in your back, every character should have some of these things, because that is consequence. That is stake. That is when you can turn around and look at, and you have to do it correctly, right? Again, when we talk about session zeros, boundary setting, consent, don't sit here and go okay, your twin is missing, and you're trying to find them, and your twin means a whole lot to you. Cool. And then later on in the campaign, you find out, oh, you did a thing that killed your twin that you didn't know. If the player's I really wanted to find my twin, right? If you're going to kill a major character, a major NPC from their backstory, or a pet especially, make sure you got player consent before you do that. But I'm very upfront with my players about hey, I want to take X and I want to do Y. I want to take the story and I want to twist it. I want to maybe put a different light on it. I want to maybe put a different spin on it. I want to do something you don't expect with it. Are there boundaries? What are you okay with? What are you not okay with? When I played in the Chrono Bloom, which is a Girl by Moonlight game, my character was from the future. And I wanted to do a story where I had known two of these characters, but in the future, one of them had died. And I went to the player and I'm without saying exactly what, I wasn't even GMing, I was just a player. I'm knowing that the future is terrible, I want to show just how terrible the future is. Where are your boundaries? Do you have boundaries around illness, death, betrayal? And once I had that in the clear and I dropped that in the game of and then you see, we're sitting at a funeral and this person is here and the other person isn't. And the player was almost in tears in the good way. Almost in tears in the good way is very different from in tears in the bad way. And the player was that was great. You nailed exactly what that relationship was. That was well done. Get that consent and then figure out how you can take that story and turn it so it becomes incredibly personal, incredibly important, because that is what makes these things work. Oh, Moxie, I love horror games in this style. So good. Really high stakes are my favorite. Yes, I love the oh, you thought you were doing the good thing. Oh, you thought that was a safe bet. Oh, you thought that NPC was on your side.
Mimics and Misfits says, my pet rule is almost always, if they don't do things in combat, they don't get hurt because pets are precious. There's a reason that the storytelling book is called Save the Cat. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason it's called Save the Cat, Kick the Dog. If your villain doesn't, it's why villains always kill the underling that failed them. It's because it is a cheap way to kick the dog. And actually, one of my favorite pictures in the history of the internet is Cobra Commander kicking the shit out of a dog. And it's awful because unlike some people, I am a dog person. I like dogs. But Cobra Commander kicking the shit out of a dog is just hilarious. And it makes it complicated for me, at least, Because when designing combat encounters, especially low-level encountering, like under level 6, it's really easy to go and grab a direwolf. It's really easy to go grab a spider. It's really easy to go grab, like, animals. Like, not creatures, but animals. And so, whenever I do, there is a very specific reason that I am doing so. And it could be your team is out on the Arctic tundra and there's nothing to eat and you smell like food and a polar bear is bearing down on you. Or it could be something's weird about these spiders. You tried to talk to them and they didn't talk back to you. And the horse said that there was something weird about the spiders because you talked to the horse earlier. I have kicked a toddler in real life. I may be a villain. Listen, here's one of the hard truths of children. If you are around toddlers, like anyone under 4 years old, and you haven't at least once done something that from the outside would look really awful, then you have not spent enough time around kids. Because kids will push your buttons, and kids will do things that will hurt themselves. And sometimes you can't reason with a toddler. Sometimes you gotta snatch them by the ankle and haul them upside down and then look them in the eye like the Mary Jane Spider-Man kiss and be like, don't do that. The fork doesn't go into the wall socket.
And also, kids, like cats, will just appear in front of your foot while you're walking.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, that's why I shuffle.
But yes, mothership player-initiated stakes are also very important. And again, when players, so again, we're talking about. I'm focusing on this because apparently this is my new hyperfixation for today. But like the knives in the back.
We love
They're
knives.
not knives that you carry. They're knives that are in the back. And players will just randomly be like, "Here's a knife that I've never talked about before, but here it is." And yeah, let me tell you, the knife, I got to give the entire audience of Mothership a knife in their back in the final episode of Mothership. When I told the GM, no, my character is not being fixed. My character is dead. And there's going to be a black square where my camera should be when we go live.
Ooh-wee.
Invite me to your horror game. I will break your heart. But yes, I recognizing when a player is like, this is a thing I care about. And that's what happened with when I talked about the Emergency Roar podcast, when I met that NPC that I had no idea existed. My character was like, I care about this. And I'm like, do you? I didn't build you to care about kids. And it's like, I care about this one. Like, okay, well, here we go.
And like that, so a good, not real life, but real life example of both unexpected care and the consequences of other people's actions have an impact on your character is Doom Guy. Doom Guy. So demons invade the earth, kill billions of people. Doom Guy comes back and is like, that's fine, like you're massacring humans, but I'm at least gonna go home, have a cup of coffee, and then get back out. No, he gets home and they found out where he lived and they killed his pet rabbit. They killed Daisy the pet rabbit. And Doom Guy found the closest portal back into hell. Crawled back in there where time is timey-wimey, and spent eons killing demons to the point whereby he became the Baba Yaga of the entire demon universe. It was just like, oh no, the boogeyman, he's real, and he's named Doom Guy. And it's like, one day I want to run a TTRPG campaign where my party aren't just the heroes, but they are the legendary villains in some like entire play. Like all of Shadowfell is like, listen, everything here sucks, but when these guys show up, it's a problem.
And yes, I'm going to circle back real quick and say, like, it is difficult as a GM because I do not want to kill your pet, right? I do not want to. If you are a ranger and you bring your pet into battle, it is unfortunately my job to try to kill said pet. That is a problem. That is a line that I have to walk. I also, once I heard this, this is a B-Dave thing. Once I heard this, I went, you know what? Yes. Which is the other rule that I have, which is unless the player / character backstory tells me otherwise, parents are great and supportive. You go home and you meet your parents, they're going to say, I'm really proud of you. Keep it up. Son, daughter, envy.
Son, daughter, chef.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, you don't... Look, it's tough because I have both recently and in the past played with people who had never played D&D before. And so all the tropes aren't tropes to them. And so they show up and they're like, I have a rogue whose both of his parents are dead, and you know, he stole to feed himself, and now he's stealing bigger and better things. And I'm like, do parents really have to be dead? I mean, I've and I gotta go with it because it's not fair to them to deprive them of that experience. But on the flip side, okay, new rule. If you show up to my table and I know that you are an experienced TTRPG player and your parents are dead, you better give me a really cool story about how they die. Either something that tugs at the heartstrings, or like comical slapstick, like they stepped on the rake slapped them in the face and they never recovered. Like you got to give me something other than Warlord invaded town and killed everybody. Like you got to give me more.
See, there's two types of D&D player. There's that one who's like, my parents are dead. My parents are dead. I have a tragic past. I speak like this and hide in the shadows. I'm deep and complicated, and you should really want to know everything about my history. And you know what? There's a place for that. I respect that. I've got a couple of those. Then I've got the character with the very long backstory that when I showed it to David, he said, Kay, you take that line out. And I said, no, I will not. Because I have the character who is a shitbag, and the mother is still alive, doing a thing. And the line I wrote was, she loved them as much as she was capable of loving anything other than herself. And David's like, hey, you take that out. That is going to hurt. I'm like, no, I want it. That's what it's there for.
Died in the Great Molasses Flood. It was a bittersweet death. Fun fact, that has happened. Both a molasses like tidal wave has happened in the history of the United States, and a beer flood killed a bunch of people. Like I think it was Philly, where like a beer factory like blew up or something, and it flooded the streets with like tens of thousands of gallons of beer, and people died. That does sound like a sticky situation, but
it's a very
like
sticky situation.
Like another character.
A wine one, I would die by wine. Beer, not wine.
Oh God, there was a wine flood 2 weeks ago in Portugal.
I gotta go read up after this.
But I'm glad they brought the character back into new Star Trek, but one of my favorite characters from the original series was Harcourt Fenton Mudd. He was a charlatan, he was a grifter, he was a womanizer, just the worst kind of slime. this absolute snake. And so in the last episode, you see him in the original series. He has a planet that has a big machine that spits out woman-looking androids. And they're like, all right, we're gonna shut down all of the like fembots that you made because gross, but we're gonna let you have one. And the one they push out is his mother. And then they leave him on the planet with it. And I'm just like, and she's a holy terror. She's all like, in the 15 seconds of dialogue you have, you're like, oh, I get why he ran away from home. And also, this is a torment worse than death. Like, at least leave him with the phaser with one good charge left in it, just in case. But yeah, like, parents don't have to be dead. Parents could just be awful. Like, just go out in the street and throw a rock and you will hit somebody that has an awful parent or an awful, terrible authority figure from their childhood.
But no, David, that is small thinking. No. You don't understand the way of the true evil GM. Let me take you, dear viewer, on the path to the truly evil GM. And that is, the parents are alive. They're wonderful. You go home, the mom had a sixth sense and made homemade apple pie. She gives a slice to the whole party. Everyone has a warm blanket. There's not much at home, right? But everyone gets a blanket. You stay the night. She sends everyone off with like knapsacks of snacks. You wander away from home, mom and dad standing on the stoop waving. You get to the next town, and there's an army marching directly towards your house.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, not to go on a Star Trek derail. I am halfway through. Right. I am halfway through season 2 of Discovery. I need to circle back and continue watching it. I had to take a break because I was starting to drift into I am going to be fluid in Klingon, whether anyone is prepared for this or not. And I was like, maybe I should take a break so that I don't just walk around speak. Because look, the talk show was great. The talk show would be 5% less great if all of my dialogue was in Klingon, okay? And that's where we were going. And Rainn Wilson as Harcourt Fenton Mudd. I can't remember the last time I have seen an actor on screen both enjoy a role so much and eat up so much scenery. Like, it is a James Spader level of eating scenery. If you have not seen Discovery, it's mostly good. I am mostly a fan. It is worth it to see Rainn Wilson play Harcourt Fenton Mudd. Yeah.
So, we are not nearing the hour and a half mark, but we are heading that direction. So, we should start looking at chat. If you have any final questions, comments, or stories that you would like to share regarding stakes, David knows this, Candace knows this, those who've sat at my table when I GM know. The thing I tell people is, like, my goal as a GM is not to kill your character. That is not my goal. My goal is to make your character into a hero and to make that process as difficult and therefore rewarding in the end as possible. If there are no stakes, if there are no pressure, then it's just kind of a power fantasy. And again, don't get me wrong, there are places for that. But if you don't find ways to raise the stakes, to put pressure on your characters, to make them decide, what will I give up? What will I risk for this? then that story is not going to hit them as deeply as it could. And I would argue it should. Because again, Candace is in the chat, can perhaps comment. I put a lot of pressure on the Godplane characters. David and I comprised a world where they didn't know what was going on, didn't know each other, didn't know how their backstories were going to impact things, didn't know. They knew what their job was. Their job was to go fight a god. That was everything they knew. And I think everyone except for 2 people who've played the Godplane have cried.
Yeah. And don't worry, eventually we will get more. We will get more. But philosophy is interesting, and like I 100% agree with Kay in the hero or villain, whatever you set out to be, we're going to throw obstacles in your way that aren't just practical obstacles, but are moral obstacles. Like you're going to have to reflect on what you're doing and why you're doing it. And something I'd like to add is I always try to bring a sense of the world is bigger than you and there are forces that you cannot control, and to separate in your mind what you can change and what you cannot change, and then to look at the things that you cannot change and then try to put the finger on the scale. And I think that the sense of grandeur of adventure, going back to Frodo throwing the ring into the volcano, you take 2 hobbits and their world is the Shire, and then you open up the world to them and everything is too big for them. And the whole, like even down to their height, the whole idea of everything is this is all too, but at the end when no one else could do anything, they put their finger on the scale. And a lot of other people got to do a lot of other things. But that little push, which is the most important thing that they will do in their lives, is a minimal but essential part of the overall thing. And I really try to bring that element to all the games that Kay and I design of this may be too big for you, this may be overwhelming, but persevere anyway. Because that's literally what our lives are like. And I think that not an important lesson to learn because we all know that lesson, but it is important to walk away knowing that if you try hard enough, you can put your finger on that scale.
And again, the reason players will get this invested, the reason players will take the risks is for payoff. So if you see someone make the difficult decision, if you see someone do the sacrifice, really, really honor it. Make sure you take the time. And it doesn't even have to be you as the GM doing that. Without spoiling too much, in the Emergency Power podcast, we had a player character die. And the GM did not suggest it. We, the players, came together and were like, we're going to do we were like, GM, we need time in this next episode because we want to do a funeral. And everyone brought their own level of talent, commitment, performance to that funeral. And the GM was so moved, the GM gave the entire party a perk that they can use, a special thing that they could use from that point forward. And again, it was not the GM pushing the stakes. The player made the choice that this character is going to make this sacrifice and will probably die to do it. And they did it. And then the players went, we're going to honor this character and we have a funeral. We're doing a funeral. We are honoring this character's memory. And the GM went, all of that was really, really touching. I'm going to honor all of those decisions and all of those things that you did with this thing that you can now use as a group going forward. So find those moments where you can really highlight as a GM, as a player, or to elevate what your players have already done. Oh, Oh, thank you so much, the Bewitching. You are wonderful. Thank you for joining us. We're so happy you're here.
Kato said, open question time. To both of you, when was the last time you role-played one of your own playable characters in a game you're DMing? Why did you insert them?
Well, this is going to change in the near future because David and I, as I think most of y'all know, we're working on a thing, and you're a fool if you think that the thousands of voices that are in my head constantly chattering are not finding homes in that. But I have an easy answer to this, David. You not so much. I have an easy answer to this. Godplane. In Godplane, we have a part where the characters meet the heroes are summoned to try and stop this nightmare, and they meet a party that was also summoned for that same reason. Not going to go into all the details, but I actually get to play in that combat, in that encounter where they meet this other party. I get to play at least a version of Roxy, the Paladin of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, that I play in the home game with David. We did this for a couple reasons, because that was the home game that brought David and I together, made us realize we wanted to build a story together. We wanted to build a world, and many of the players, including Kato in chat, in that home game, did a lot to help us with ideas, with playtesting, with that sort of thing. So we inserted the characters from that home game party as characters in the Godplane, to kind of... This home game is not streamed. The world will never know these characters, but now there's at least a little piece of them that lives, and that was a deliberate thank you, a deliberate way to honor the home game party that helped David and I make something that we are both very proud of.
I have not role-played any of my characters as an NPC yet. That is coming, and the reason that is coming is to circle back to what someone else said in chat of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But I have recently role-played one of Kay's characters in a game, and the reason that person is in that game is because we tied so Kay makes characters to explore things within themselves, but also reflects a lot of the core concepts that we have for the games that we're developing. And so two of those characters, one is this new approach to death and loss and the circle of life, that character is sort of a extension and meditation on that, and a way to obfuscate something that is necessary but a lot of people would find horrific. And it's like, it's not horrific as long as you don't ask how the sausage is made. It's fine. How the sausage is made is fine. And the other character is tied into basically every level of machination of the world we've built. Local politics, regional politics, the politics of the Cold War that exists between the gods. And one of the big storylines is how different gods are getting more overt with their influences and with their avatars, and how a god looks back on something in the past, and has to come to this like moral quandary of like, do I run the risk of changing how things are now by interfering with this in the past? Or do I tinker with things in the past to try to avoid bad things that I know are coming? And so it's a lot of like, a character just shows up and is kind of an asshole and does a little magic trick and fucks off. But it is the start of a bigger and more important thematic thing that we're all angling for.
And ironically, it's funny you asked this, Kato, because, and this is actually the character David is referencing in the second part, I have a character that is in the world that David and I are building because every game I'm supposed to be playing this character in has fallen through. I am convinced they are cursed. I will never get to play them. I've got backstory on backstory. I'm ready to go. I can't get it out. This dice, this is a custom-made dice for that character. I've had it for years and never rolled it. You know why? Because I've never gotten to play that character. So they're going to be an NPC in my world. If I can't play them that way, they'll at least exist there. Moxie Blue says, my character had to lose her abilities and leave the people she loved, going off alone to do a job that would put them in charge of people's lives and had to be alone. I sobbed on screen. I was even timed on my goodbyes. It was so, so heartbreaking, and I loved every second. Yes, for those of you who don't know, and look, I love me a silly, lighthearted slapstick, very fun. 40 months? Thank you, Zycram. That's amazing. I love a good slapstick, silly, let's have fun TTRPG. But at my core and at my being, I am of the hurt me daddy school of TTRPGs, so please rip my heart out. I will give you all of the tools to do so. Don't be afraid to take them. Also, consent and boundaries, because while yes, I want all of the heartbreak, sexual assault is not an interesting plotline for me. Like, so just, make sure that you know what kind of pain your party members want and give that kind of, be a service top. If you're a GM, be a service top.
As someone who is not necessarily a service top, that is good advice. Follow Kay's advice. Don't do it the way I do it, because I figured out how to make it work, but it's much easier and much friendlier to just be a service top. It's gone.
Okay. No Goblin Slayer for I mean, I'll slay some goblins. It's not a problem. But I do believe with that, we are going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Dungeon Mr. Ty, for the topic. Thank you to all of you who joined us. We had a couple first-time chatters. It was...
Oh, yeah, no. The anime? No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. We are sex positive, and we support sex workers. Just because sexual assault and all the other awful things that are associated with that don't belong in our worlds doesn't mean that sex workers aren't in our worlds. And we have this, where we've worked on this whole storyline around what happens at the bordello, because I think backing away from that really takes away a lot of the texture, not realism. Like anyone who's like, well, of course there would be prostitutes in this world. That's just there are no dragons and tieflings, and don't talk to me about realism. If you want realism, then go cast Magic Missile and get it on video for me. But a whole lot of political intrigue happens on the pillow right before you go to sleep, and a lot of secrets get spilled to workers that people in power don't consider important. There's a reason that a big part of Downton Abbey is with the help, is with the service people, is because they know what's really going on, and they're human beings and adults, and they have opinions, and they love to gossip, and they talk to each other. And so there's a whole lot of storytelling there that you can and should take advantage of. So like your scullery maids and your bussers and maybe even the occasional lady, man, or NB of the night, like they got a whole lot going on.
Exactly.
And so like don't pass up that opportunity, because we definitely did.
So, with that rant, I do believe we're going to wind it down a little bit. Thank you to our newcomers, Silver Lion Prime and The Bewitching. We're delighted you're here. Thank you, Zycram, for 40 months of subscribing. That is so bananas. Thank you, Dungeon Mr. Ty, for the topic. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. To JD for moderating, for Kato for coming by. It's always a treat to see you, Kato. Thank you to Ribbonanza for the redeems, to Emma H for the hydrate, and to The Bewitching for the follow. You can find us here every Tuesday doing this, the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show. You can find me here on Thursdays streaming something cozy-ish. You are going to find me doing Pokemon, the DLC, on this coming Thursday. Then I might go back to Palia. Ooblets is coming out on Steam, so to celebrate, I might stream some Ooblets. I got to help both alpha and beta test Ooblets, so seeing its success is just joy to me.
Also, the Ooblets team is really cool. Kay has had nothing but great stories about the Ooblets.
They're great. I have so many Ooblets pins, it's a problem. And no, I will not give them to anyone else. They're mine. They were given to me. They're mine. Friday, we will be doing the second part of our sponsored Telltale Games The Expanse stream. David is going to be streaming The Expanse, a Telltale story game, a Telltale, by Telltale, whatever. The Expanse, Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That is 3 p.m.? 4 p.m. 4 p.m. Pacific.
4
p.m. Pacific. And if you come by, I have to set up the bot, but we will have a giveaway. We will be giving away a code for Wolf Among Us by Telltale Games. So come on by, hang out, get you a game. If you are not in our Discord, please come and join us. Haha, that one works. Please come join the Discord. We talk all sorts of TTRPG things. We talk video games. We share pet pictures. And I will probably be announcing there first. I have a new game that's going to be starting soon. Y'all, I can't wait to get the art for this character. David knows what it is. It's going to be ridiculous. I have been given full permission to be extra, and you know your friend is going to be extra. So, thank you again for hanging out. There are a lot of pet pics. It's great, especially Kato. Kato has a lot of pets to share pet pics of.
Kay sent me the write-up for this character.
Don't shame me.
There's no shame here. 38 pages. However, it's not all written stuff.
It's mostly
image references. However,
it's also like mostly and like it's in Google Docs, so you know how Google Docs, like you put the image and then it'll do like, it's like, well, we can only put one image on the page, so you get like, yeah, it's one of those.
But the thing isn't all the images. The thing is the time investment. But to any prospective DM TTRPG production company, you get a lot when you call upon Kay. In addition to that, Kay puts more thought into their characters than anyone else. And I'm willing to die on that hill. And by die on that hill, I mean kill on that hill.
And this is a nice little point. I was talking to this GM about this character, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to warn you right now. I'm the person who's going to write a 13-page backstory. And the GM's like, and I'm the GM who will not read it. And I'm like, great, because I will send you bullet points and plot hooks. And he's like, that's exactly what I need. So communication, level setting is great, because I do not expect anyone to read my ridiculously long backstories. but I want the information to be there. If the GM wants it, I just have to write it so it's in my head. So thank you all so much for joining us. We are going to, should we go see Xander or should we go see Cypher?
Let's go see Cypher.
Cypher is playing Lies of P.
Yes.
So we will raid over to that. David is going to take us out. Thank you all so much. I hope to see you Thursday, and if not Thursday, please join us Friday for The Expanse. You all are wonderful. Be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time, chat.